Cost Accounting, Chapter 4. Chapter 4, we're going to start talking about costing systems. So our costing system is the system we use to track and manage all of our costs. There are two main costing systems, job costing and process costing. There are also hybrid costing systems that use components of the two. But the main purpose of the costing system is that it helps us accurately keep track of our costs so we know what to charge for our products and services. To develop a costing system, we need to know what kind of products and services that we're going to offer. So because the costing system is the process of keeping track of all of those costs and information, assigning our direct materials, direct labor, and overhead to our products and services. Sorry, that's my dog you can hear in the background. When we're looking at a product's costing system, we need to know what we're looking at. So what is our cost accumulation method? Are we going to use job or process costing or a hybrid system? What is our measurement of cost? Do we use the actual, normal, or standard costing? And we're going to talk about each of these individually. And how do we assign overhead? Do we use an activity-based system, a single plant-wide rate, departmental rates, volume-based rates, etc.? Some of those things of driving a costing system choice depend on what our industry, product, or service is. Because some products and services work better with a job costing system, while other products are more inclined to use a process costing system. We also need to know our strategy and information needs. And then the costs and benefits of acquiring, designing, modifying, and operating a particular system. So remember that the cost of implementing our system should not be more than the benefits of the information that we get from that particular system. Do we use job costing or process costing? That's one of our first questions. So in a job costing system, we assign costs to specific jobs. This system is usually used when we can identify that cost with a specific customer, a project, or a specific job or a job order. We often use job costing systems in smaller businesses, anything that has a customized product or service, when we're doing specific things for specific jobs. Some examples of job costing, we're going to see a job and process costing we're going to see on the next slide. Process costing is used when we mass produce products that are identical. So we make hundreds of thousands of the same exact product through a continuous mass production cycle. That's when we use process costing. So some examples of when we would use job costing: construction, printing, special equipment manufacturing, medical services. Almost any service agency is going to use a job costing system because services are not mass produced. Custom furniture, anything that we're going to offer custom ordering for. Advertising agencies, accounting firms, law firms. Process costing is food products, paper products, chemicals, paint, bottling. So those things that are identical and mass produced. After we've decided if we're going to use a job or a process costing, or in some cases a hybrid system, then we need to decide how we measure costs. So the types of cost measurement we can use are actual, normal, and standard. In an actual costing system, we use the actual costs incurred. This kind of system is rarely used because unit costs fluctuate significantly throughout the year. And our total factory overhead costs are only known at the very end of the year. Therefore, we don't have timely cost information for actual costs. A lot of the times don't know actual costs until after the fact. So because actual costs can fluctuate and they're not timely, we rarely use these systems. We normally use some type of an estimated cost. And those estimated costs can either be normal costs or standard costs. So in a normal costing system, we use our actual costs for direct materials and direct labor, but we estimate our factory overhead based on our historic information. So we use an allocation amount for overhead based on how our business has been structured in the past, how our cost drivers drive that overhead information. In a standard costing system, we use standard costs for all of our costs, direct and indirect. So standard costs are those costs that we should be having under our normal, efficient operating conditions. Standard costing systems are the most common systems because they help us with cost control, performance evaluation, and process improvement decisions. Standard costing is what we use when we look at variance analysis also. So we look at the difference between our actual costs incurred and our standard costs for what should have happened. So this chart breaks down those three different costing systems: actual cost, normal costing, and standard costing. As we said, standard costing is the most commonly used one, with normal costing being the second most commonly used and actual costing being very rarely used. So then once we decide we're going to assign overhead using normal or standard costing, we have to decide if we're going to use volume-based or activity-based. There are also ways to allocate overhead outside of volume-based or activity-based systems. First, we're going to look at volume and activity-based. So in volume-based, we look at things such as units produced, direct labor hours, costs, or machine hours. So we assume that overhead is related to output volume. In activity-based costing, we use a cause and effect criteria using both volume and non-volume. So activity-based is the most accurately based resource consumption of overhead. However, activity-based costing systems are expensive to implement, and we can still be off on our estimates if we're not making good decisions about what an activity-based is. Why do we need accurate cost information? We can't properly price our products unless we know how much they cost. If we price our products without knowing what the full cost of that product is, we can end up underpricing a product. We also want to know what the profitability of that product is. Is it worth us to continue producing that product, or are we going to plan to move into another product line? If we have multiple products, how do we strategically decide which products to produce and when to give us the most profitability? We're also going to look at our customer profitability analysis. Is that customer a profitable customer? Or are they costing us money somehow? And maybe we want to drop them as a customer, or we want to find a way to make that customer more profitable. There are instances in which companies fire customers. does happen, and we'll do some analysis of that later on in the semester. We also use our cost information to evaluate our management performance and evaluate the performance of our company. Are we meeting our budget goals? Are we meeting those goals of our standard costs? If we say a product has a standard cost, but we never hit that standard cost, do we either need to reevaluate our standard costs, or do we need to evaluate our production process? Do we need to invest in employee training to reduce the number of direct labor hours that assembly is taking, etc.? We use all of that information in our strategic goal planning for our organization.